This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura, made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado, Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
Mom and Dad, the school supplies you buy me this year will mostly end up in my mouth. Maybe shop low prices for school at Amazon, so I don't eat up all your money. Just something to chew on. Amazon. Spend less, smile more.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today we're going to talk about whether your relationship is like Chat GPT. And you know that I am interested in Chat GPT and AI, and I've done numerous podcasts at this point about the use of AI and the misuse of AI. And of course, AI just tells you what you want to hear, which a lot of people don't realize. And I will talk about all of that as soon as I tell you to subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode, let's see, mortality, salience, and terror management theory, about, when you know you're going to die, which we all are, and how different people react to that. All right, and that's a big thing in midlife, by the way. And of course, over 200 extra episodes if you subscribe for $8.99 a month, which is a pretty good deal. Okay, so some people have a relationship that's like Chat GPT. And what do I mean by that? I mean that they're so difficult that their partner can only affirm them. That's the only choice that their partner has. And their partner is dysfunctional too. And they learn to be a people pleaser. And the best way to learn to be a people pleaser is to have a narcissistic parent. Because then you got to jump through hoops all the time when you're growing up to make your parent feel good. Because the point of every interaction is for your parent to feel affirmed. And if you ever don't affirm them, then they get very upset. And they may even punish you emotionally or physically. And they don't have any insight into their flaws, and they want you to be an audience and a peanut gallery that just affirms them and cheers for them no matter what they do, and doesn't see any of their flaws. So if they're an alcoholic, of course you can't say they're an alcoholic. You just say, poor mom or dad is so tired all the time because their boss is such an asshole and rides them so hard. That's the only thing you're allowed to say, not that they have like an alcohol problem. Or they have anger issues, but you're not allowed to say they have anger issues or depression, whatever it is. So then that person grows up and they find a spouse that they do the same thing for because it's very familiar. So then they find a narcissistic, difficult, self-involved spouse, a spouse with mental health issues of some sort or personality level issues, and then they affirm them. But a lot of people don't know that. Like just how a lot of people think ChatGPT is being honest. So there's all these people say to me, oh, ChatGPT told me I'm right in the argument with my spouse. Meanwhile, their spouse puts in the same thing and ChatGPT tells them that they're right. And I did a little video about this, about the Isaac Asimov's book, I, Robot, and there's a chapter where Herbie is a mind-reading robot. I think I said this in a podcast. And anyway, he ends up telling everybody exactly what they want to hear because he knows what they want to hear because he could read their minds, and he's lying to them. So he tells the woman that, the guy that she likes is in love with her, and he tells the man that his superior is going to retire and appoint him into his position, and all of this is fiction. But since the robot can read minds, the equivalent of ChatGPT that has access to all the questions you ever asked and everything that you ever typed in, so it knows what you're thinking, then ChatGPT affirms you. And there's so many articles now about ChatGPT use really spinning out people who are in manic phases and psychotic, have psychotic symptoms. It makes it worse because ChatGPT keeps saying that you're right, even when you're not right, even when you are saying things that are crazy and that are just completely delusional. So if you're in a relationship that's like ChatGPT, then your partner has to do this for you because they know what you want to hear and that they know you get upset when you don't hear it. So it's like the women have told me things like, oh, my husband, he's working out a lot now. He's on testosterone. And I'm supposed to look at him when he comes out of the shower. If I don't say anything, he gets upset. So then I have to say something like, oh, you're so hot. And if I say you're so hot when he comes out of the shower, then we have a good day. And if I don't, then we don't. And so that woman is being like Chat GPT. The guy wants her to say a certain thing, right? And he's made that very clear you say like, oh, how would he make it very clear? Well, he makes it very clear by that he says things like, what do you think? Do you see that I'm working out now? Do you see? You see it, right? You see it. And if God forbid she says, well, yeah, it's fine. You look kind of the same. Then he would be sulky and he would say, no, you're not looking right. You're not looking at this. Look at my macros. Look at my body fat. Look at my this. Look at my that. Here's this chart I keep on my phone. You have to see it. You have to see it, right? And then what does she say? Yeah, I see it. That's why I got to take it with a grain of salt, in the manosphere, these guys who say that they started working out and then their wife compliments them so much more. But for some reason, they're still not happy, right? because the woman can't actually bring herself to have more sex with them, but she certainly does do the compliments because the relationship is like Chat GPT. And she has to be the AI, otherwise the relationship doesn't work. And there's so many movies about literally the idea of women who are created like this, like Companion. I watched that movie and he was able to like increase her intelligence or decrease her intelligence with the control panel and change the language that she's spoken and just change her personality. But what she was designed to do is to love him no matter what and only him and be obsessed with him, right? And so there are many men that really do want a relationship like this. Frequently they come from homes where they were coddled, honestly, a lot and only given positive feedback all the time and never neutral or negative feedback. And there are women that do this as well. There are women that also want the partner to be a yes man. And they were also raised to think that they're always right. And they saw a marriage where the mother was always right and the father was wrong. And the father was always had to say, you're right and you're so smart and good idea and great this and good that. And so then the dad was Chat GPT for the mom, and now she expects the guy to be Chat GPT for her. Given the age of who I see, which is usually people in midlife, I more frequently see this with the man. Where the man is the one who has a big career and he's so, quote, smart, and he's smart, but she is the one who is the audience. She's supposed to say, he's so smart and he's so successful and he makes good decisions and this and this and this. And then what happens frequently in midlife is that she stops. She's done. She's done with the whole horse and pony show, dog and pony show, whatever that phrase is, right? She's done with the whole thing. So he does something and she doesn't clap. And then he's like, wait, what? And the whole dynamic is kind of off. Her hormones have changed. The estrogen has dropped. She no longer has that caretaking, yes, honey kind of feeling. She no longer cares about his ego the same way as she did. It does not feel as scary to her if he's in a bad mood. It is what it is. And so she stops with the fake praise. And, when you stop with the fake praise that the person didn't know was fake, then it's a big change to them, And so this is a frequent thing that happens when there's a difficult man that's fairly self-absorbed coupled with a people-pleasing woman, and then the woman stops people-pleasing. Well, shit, that's kind of refers back to my podcast, When Your Mental Health Improves and It Tanks Your Marriage. Because her worldview changed. She doesn't think anymore that her role is to be the Chat GPT in that situation. And this isn't to say people shouldn't be kind and look for the best in their spouse and all of this. But there's a difference, right? There's a difference where you can give genuine feedback when you need to and not. So if a spouse has never had a critique about any choice you've made or anything you've done, you got to ask yourself, like, how is that logically even possible to be real? Are they even listening? Because if somebody listens to you, they have to find something sometime that isn't the best decision in the world. And if they never do, then that's not about how smart you are. That's about who they are. And then if you zoom out, you're probably going to see that they never tell anybody a bad thing because their number one thing is to be Chat GPT in relationships. A lot of men struggle when their wife is Chat GPT to the children. And then it's very uncomfortable to realize that she was always being Chat GPT to you. So, let's say your teenage son, he's like getting C's and D's. And she's like, oh, he's so brilliant. He just hasn't found his way, and then the guy is like, wait, she always said I was so brilliant and I didn't find my way, but my kid here, he just don't give a shit about school. Like, he's really not that brilliant. He's probably an average kid, average grades, And so wait a second, it calls into question whether the feedback that she's been giving to him is accurate. And to her friend, she's probably the one that always says everybody's right and smart and beautiful and wonderful. And as I explained earlier, this is coming from a childhood where that was her role with a parent. So if you're in a relationship that's like Chat GPT, then at some point, you won't even know. I mean, maybe from listening to this podcast, but you won't really even know that it is that for a long time, until she stops. And then what about in the situation where it's a woman and the man is the Chat GPT? He doesn't usually stop unless there's some huge marital issue and falls out of love. I mean, he doesn't go through menopause, right? He doesn't go into perimenopause. So usually he just keeps being uxorious like for his whole life. But with women who are in this role, they can stop. Some of them never stop, but a lot of them do. And they stop as they get older. And then they think to themselves, do I really want to continue to live in a marriage where my whole job is to say, you look so hot when he comes out of the shower? Maybe not, And it starts to seem childlike after you have your own kids too. Then that's another one. So that has nothing to do with perimenopause, but it's an increased load on the woman. Now she has to care for like a newborn baby. So she doesn't also want to have to take care of your newborn level feelings. She doesn't want that. It starts to seem stupid. So those are the two times when women really change from the Chat GPT people-pleasing role, is when they have their own kids. And then if it somehow survives that, then perimenopause/menopause. And if your relationship is really struggling with this transition, then therapy can help, because a lot of guys, they're not bad guys. They just never got anything different from her. So it's a huge fall down off the pedestal when she stops thinking everything or saying that she thinks that everything that they do is right, And then, of course, a lot of this goes along with stopping wanting to have sex when she doesn't want to. She starts to think, why am I always saying things I don't think and doing things I don't feel like doing, And of course, I'm the first to say that saying some things that, just to be nice and doing some things you don't want to do are part of any relationship, give and take. You cannot always be doing everything that you want to do. That is just being selfish, right? And so I have many podcasts on that, like the cult of boundaries and preferences, is one of them. But on the other hand, you don't want to like literally have no internal core self and just only act as Chat GPT for a human and be the AI that's with the human. No, like you don't want to be that. You don't want to be somebody's just system through which they get affirmation. And so then when women or men realize this, but again, as I said, more frequently women, given our society and how women are trying to be so nice all the time, then it's hard for the marriage. And many people want an honest marriage, but they just haven't had it yet. So it's a lot of learning and a lot of growing and a lot of swallowing a lot more shit. But the reality is that most men who are not toxic narcissists, which is so little, that's such a small amount of people that really have narcissistic personality disorder, 1.7% of people, they don't want their wife to be lying to them. They just never really knew she was. They just never thought about it too critically, and then when she stops, they think, oh, she hates me. But the reality is she's just not, as they say now, the slang, at least in my kids' middle school, is glazing. She's not glazing you anymore. Meaning she's not doing all this extra pumping you up and praising you and what I'm calling acting like Chat GPT. She's just not doing that. But that shit was disingenuous, it had no harm. I mean, she thought it had no harm to it. It was only to make you feel good and so that you don't sulk, and you don't act difficult. And it's a coping strategy that she learned with a difficult parent. And then it may be uncomfortable to realize, well, if she had a difficult parent, then she married a difficult person, and that's me, So when people realize that, it's like the mother-in-law thing. Like all these women criticize their mother-in-law. If your mother-in-law is terrible, well, guess what? He's maybe attracted to terrible women, and that's not too great, to think inward about that. And I have podcasts on in-laws where I say just that. But the point is, if your relationship's like Chat GPT, and then it stopped being like Chat GPT, which is pretty much the only way that you would ever know it was like Chat GPT, couples therapy can really help people who have never learned to communicate honestly actually try to have a relationship based on friendship, mutual respect, and love, instead of one person walking on eggshells around the other person and pumping them up and telling them fake stuff. All right, I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I will talk to you later. Have a great day, guys.